All right. So as far as tonight's lesson, so first off, thank you guys so much. And thank you, Roman. I asked him if I could help teach tonight just because I was here and really wanted to just say hello to everybody. I won't, I don't run the weekly preps, I run the monthly preps, but whenever I can and I have time, I definitely like to get connected. I don't run. We're on live. I was like, who's talking? I definitely like to be involved whenever I can. And so I sent you guys, so today we're going to be talking about just basics of communication, which are so huge. And I'm going to give you guys some tips just for different areas. And then we're going to talk about, and Roman's going to give some tips like rocking a great PR call. And I'll add some final things at the end. But this is really important, and you guys want to make sure you're able to take notes on this. And for any of you guys who are ever, when you're tuning in, making sure you have this time set aside so you can actually take notes on this stuff so you can re-give this later. And that's the whole goal, is you guys learn it, but not just learn it for you, learn it to be able to reteach it. Cool. So that's what I want to make sure that as you guys take notes, take it in a way of, could I tomorrow teach this to a group of people, and so that's how you really want to take notes for these things. So I shared with you guys an article that I thought was great earlier today, which if you didn't read it, totally fine, because I planned on going over the stuff that was in it tonight with you guys. But as I looked at different things, and I can give you all my general things, but I'm like, what are the experts saying, and there was something from like entrepreneur, and it was just like real basic. And I said, oh, that's cool, but I think about when it comes to communication, we talked about, 2 weeks ago, the difficult conversations, right? But just in general, you think about like the likability factor, connectability, right? People just like, they want to talk to you. They like really feel close to you. There's so much that goes into communication, and basics that we're taught when we're younger are that there's like the nonverbal, right? There's like the actual words, the verbal part, and then there's the delivery, right? Those three aspects. So the words, the delivery, and the nonverbal communication of what's going down. And this is really important because, and you need to watch, like, as you're working with people and coaching people, like what those things look like. And even for you guys, if you're wanting to make a sale, right? So whether this is on a demo, this is when you're running your office, you're running an interview, you're working with somebody, and you're wanting to make a sale. What's a sale? A sale is a transfer of one idea to another, where they're like, there's a transfer of enthusiasm, right? From one sale to another. That's when a sale occurs. Whether you sold someone on going to check out a restaurant because you're like, oh my gosh, you got to check this place out. Like, amazing, on the water, like the view is so gorgeous, there's live music, boom. And the person's like, I want to go. You just sold them on going, right? So it's a transfer of enthusiasm. And for any sale to occur, it's a combination. The best quote unquote salespeople are just, their tone, their excitement, their delivery. And if you look at their nonverbals, they're like, so, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta like check this out, right? Because they're just so excited. And you can see that and you can feel it, And I want to say, be careful too, because sometimes people try to like fake it and be excited. And like people can also feel, inauthenticity or authenticity, So like really sharing from like, oh my gosh, I love this place. So I love it, whatever it is. This is huge. This will be huge in your interviews as you do your perk section. And you're sharing like what you love about the company, and you're going to see this go into play. And we're going to talk about these, top 10 communication skills in general, but just know that the basics of, you've got your words, you've got your delivery of your words, like the actual tone, speed, diction, that aspect, the verbal delivery, and then you have the nonverbal delivery. And what is the biggest part of communication? The nonverbal communication. That's the biggest part. So you can't forget that. So when we're going to talk about rocking PR calls in a bit here, right? When you're coaching reps to be great on the phone, you want to get great on the phone. You can't forget that when you're on the phone, you're losing the biggest part of communication. Like literally over half of what impacts your communication is gone. So we can't change the words. The words are the words. So what you do is you have to make up for it with the delivery, with the tonality. And so that's why sometimes, you'll see some of the best phone people, you're like, oh my God, they're so excited. Like if you watch Francisco on the phone, or you watch Randy on the phone, or like when Randy worked with me and as we coach, like, hey, how are you? And you're like, what crack are they on, right? But you're making up for that nonverbal over the phone with your enthusiasm, with your excitement, with your non. So this is really important, and people don't realize this, and then they're just like, or they think it's like quirky or whatever. And so they're just kind of like chill talking to the phone. It's like, no, you have to be super excited. And we're going to talk about this too, with like, just enthusiasm. To me, and excitement is part of, if you want to sell, right? Because a sale is a transfer of enthusiasm for a product, for a service, for, whatever it is. We're in sales. We're selling people on why they should have this job, the best freaking job ever. We're selling people on campuses and schools on why they should partner with us. We're selling an opportunity, right? As a manager, as a rep, we're selling a product. As a manager, we're selling an opportunity. Regardless, we're all in sales. All right. And by the way, everyone's in sales their whole life. Like the funniest thing to me is when someone goes like, oh, well, I'm not really in sales, or I'm not doing sales, or sales isn't part of my major. And I'm like, really? It's called life, like you're constantly selling your views, your ideas, your services. Maybe you're not selling a product, or you don't think you're selling a service, but it's like, if you work in any company, like if they're paying you for something, you sold something, and then even with your kids or your spouses or whatever, like you're selling you or ideas or beliefs that you have, right? So anyway, learning aspects of this is really important. But for you guys directly, when it comes to, as a rep or as a manager, knowing that your natural like enthusiasm and excitement, by the way, they're going to receive it. Whoever you're speaking to is going to receive it typically about 3 notches lower than where you're at, right? So definitely, like if you guys are closing sales on the phone, you're like, oh, hey, what's up? Oh yeah, you can give them this deal. And they're like, oh, okay. Like that drop. And that's why, like, if you watch the best PDIers in the nation, they pick up the phone and they're like, whatever, complete set hotline, signature hotline, sets on Saturday, what's happening? Like, I don't know if Randy does that when he closes sales for you guys. When he'd be on straight PDI mode, that was the best ever, and Roman does this too. But if you sit and just watch him just going and just slowly closing, it's like, boom, this hotline, what's going on? And they're like level here. And when they get a deal, they're like, oh, dude, check this out. And if you've ever watched Roman do this, he does a great job with this. And you might be like, that's a little over the top. No, it's not, because the rep's getting it 3 levels lower. And by the way, who does the rep now has to communicate that to someone else who's going to get it, 3 levels lower. So you want to be like super excited because that makes a really big difference, a really big impact. Okay. So those are just like, just basic grounds in terms of just communication, making sure your people know and understand that, and understand by like, why do I need to sound so excited on the phone? Because you don't have your nonverbal. And if I was looking at you and if I turned around and I was like, God, I'm really excited. You're like, are you? Like, but if you see my face and I was like, I'm really excited. Like, you're like, oh, like you could see it, Now, if I was like, dude, I'm really excited, and I was turned around, you could still hear that I'm really excited. And that's where I made up for it with the tonality and delivery. Does that make sense? All right. So really important as you guys are working with and coaching people. So, by the way, Zoomers, can you guys hear me well? Thumbs up. All right, cool. I just want to make sure that the volume is good. So top 10 communication skills, and it talked about stuff here, and I'll go through these real quick and give some basic things. Listening. And so this is the first thing in terms of communication. You got to listen to whoever you're talking to, right? This is going to be so impactful in demos. This is going to be so huge in your interviews. When you guys are just really listening for the things that are important to them, right? Like, why are you looking for a job right now? Or are you looking to add? And they say, oh, I just need something flexible because I'm playing sports or whatever. Like, are you listening to that? Or are you just like trying to sell what you have? Because when I go run that interview, I'm going to be talking about how some of our reps love this for our athletes because of flexibility around practice and whatever. And I'm going to plug examples in of the people that are in my interview. My examples are not always the same. There are some that are like my signature things I always say, but when you're a great recruiter, when you're a great trainer, when you're a great sales rep, when you're just a great communicator, you know what to listen for. And that's going to help you connect with people better, right? So really take time to listen to what people are saying, ask clarifying questions, right? Rephrase what they're saying to make sure you're understanding. Like you guys, so what you're saying is, or hey, what I'm hearing you say is this, is that correct? Right? Because how do we hear things through? Do you guys remember what we talked about before? When people say stuff, we hear stuff through our lens, like whatever it is. So what they said, we might have misinterpreted it because when we filtered it through our lens, it might have come off different. So when I go, Lo, when you said this, is this what you're meaning? And you might be like, yeah. Or you might be like, no, that's not what I meant. Like I meant this. And we said the same thing, but we had different meaning attached to it because of our past experiences. We talked about that before, right? So it's important that as you're listening to make sure you are asking those clarifying questions, rephrasing what they say, to make sure that when you're, and that's called active listening, make sure you understand what they're saying. The second thing I was already talking a lot about was nonverbal communication, all right? So nonverbal communication is so huge. And so for somebody who's more quiet, who's more reserved, right? So I think about right on this call, Christina, all right? So Christina and I have different personalities, right? So this is important because you've got to be you. If Christina all of a sudden was like, hey guys, everyone would be like, what is going on right now? It would just be really weird. I would be really weirded out. So Christina, where you, and for anybody who's more like laid back, more reserved, and when you have reps like this, and when you have assistant managers like this, even more so is the nonverbal so important because people can see it and they can feel it. And so you don't have to be like all up in their face and loud. You can just be like, oh, hey, look at this. Oh, check this out. Oh, like the guy who trained me to be a top rep, by the way, and him and I were like accountability buddies, and we both won scholarships my first summer, spoke about this loud and was like this most of the time. And sometimes he'd look up, but mostly he was just like this. And he was in my honors program. He was a computer information systems major, Peter Sheets, super quiet, super reserved. Like we'd be walking at school. I'm like, hey, Peter. And he's like, and I was like, it was like way too much for him. But he loved me. We were in honors together. We'd always study. And when I started selling Heck, I'm like, how did you do this? Because I'm like, you don't even talk, And I went field training with him. He was like, oh, Michelle, like, you got to check these out. I'm like, oh, our customers love this. And like, my mom, like, this is her favorite, but like you could see in his face, like his belief in it. Right. So again, whether it's on a demo, whether it's on an interview, like you have to teach your reps, and you guys have to know too, like, sometimes actually in the interview, like less hype, like, like you want to be more chill, but they can see it in your face, how you talk about it. You're like, this is this, and this is this, and this is why I love this. And like, they can just see it with your body language. Okay. So making sure that you guys are using that nonverbal, the eye contact, the hand gestures, the tone, all of this is so huge. And by the way, pay attention to their nonverbals, okay? And by the way, don't assume things either. I was a culprit of this when I ran interviews early on where somebody was sitting there and they didn't seem into it. And I like kicked them out of the interview or something. And then I, talked to them after, or someone talked to them, and they said that they, like, their mom had been calling them and got like in a car accident or something. And so they were just kind of sitting there like, ready to get out, not because of that, but because of the news they got, Mm-hmm. And they were like, I'm so sorry. Like, I just got this news. Like, can I reschedule, and they like rescheduled them, but I was like, oh shit, so like, or some people are very like much audio learners. So I remember being a new manager and saying, oh, you guys take notes on this. And they would be like, I'm like, this little shit, I said to take notes. And they just be sitting there. And then later they would come to me or during a break and like, hey, just, I just like, I soak in. I'm like, I'm recording you as well. Cause like, I'm just an audio learner. And I'm like, oh, you're good. But I remember being like, what the heck, so I remember like people also have different styles. So just like That's important too, which can be confusing because you're like, well, then how the hell do I read nonverbals, but just keep a lookout. When you see someone's like disengaged, like that's someone that when I'd have a break or in an interview or whatever, I'd bring it up and I'd say, hey, is everything okay? Like I noticed you were like not taking as many notes, or hey, is everything okay? I noticed you seemed a little bit like distant at times and I wasn't sure if something was going on. And I've had people go, oh my God, yeah, da 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 da. And then I've had people that said like, yeah, it's just not really for. I'm like, all right, cool, man. Thanks for coming in, like appreciate it, but that would be a way, just asking like, hey, is everything okay? Like I noticed you weren't taking a lot of notes, or hey, I noticed you were, kind of distant at times. Like those are great phrases that you guys can use where you're not making anyone feel bad, and you're allowing space for whatever to surface. So that's really big. The third thing was clarity and just being concise, right? So this has been something I've had to practice because I just talk a lot and I keep talking. And I remember the first person I cross-trained with in 2005 when I was a manager, he goes, you're awesome. You just need to say what you're saying in like a tenth of the words. I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, just like that story you told. Like instead of like 35 minutes, like do it in 5. And I was like, wow. Like I started the story and I'm already like, oh, she's already 7 minutes. And when I tried to like look at it later, but really learning. And that's something even right now I'm working on a big talk I'm giving next month. And it's a big deal in front of like top entrepreneurs. And I'm just like, okay, I need to get to the point. So I'm like really having to relook. I'm like, what exact points do I want to make? How quickly can I tell these stories? And I started working on that today so that I'm not like in circles. I'm like, I have this amount of time. I want to keep their attention. I want them to be like, wow, great, boom, and it's definitely a process to learn how to do that, especially if you're a talker, So, but you want to convey your message in as few words as possible. So the way to look at this, and you can evaluate what you're speaking on, is what's my point? What do I want them to take from me saying this, right? Whatever long rant I'm going on, what's the point of it? Oh, I want them to understand blank. Or, oh, I want to make sure they get this, right? And then I'll relook at it and go, how can I do that in less words, right? So I'll just look at things, look at stories. Like that's what helped me get shorter, was just making sure I clarified the exact points I wanted to make, and then going, okay, how can I achieve that quicker? Maybe it's a different story that's faster. Maybe it's a personal example. Like, I don't know what it is, but it can be something else. All right. So again, if you're talking to someone in person on the phone and emails anyway, if you ramble on, you can lose your audience. And especially in today's day and age, the people are getting, more and more like short attention spans. That's really important. Okay. Number 4 is friendliness. All right. And when it comes to friendliness, I think about like, just do they feel is your energy welcoming? Right? Is it warm? That's so a simple like smile is like, no, by the way, when you're running an interview, and I always greet and I say, hey, how can I help you? And I'll say, I'm like, oh, well, just so you know what's happening. But it's very matter of fact. I'm not like, oh, great. Well, I can't wait to talk. No, if I'm second manning, yes. And in training, oh, yes. And when I accept them, like, by the way, I'm super excited to get to know you. I'm like, get here early so we can get some time before training. Just so I can chat with you a little bit more. Today I've got to keep moving. It's pretty brief here, but super stoked to have you on the team. And they're like, oh, okay, so it just, that having a smile on your face makes people feel good, right? And it's very easy. And I can tell you from personal experience, I'm sure Roman can attest to this. Anyone who's been that when you get in the zone and you're going, and sometimes you're like stressed, the smile goes away. And so it's really important to remind yourself like, oh, I need a smile so that people want to be here, because people are attracted to that. And for me, I made it a point to always have people that like made me laugh or had great energy, because I know that I get in the zone. And so I needed the people that could like make a funny joke or say things while we were at the office, and they like got stuff done, but they just like brought humor, because it always kept me like smiling, versus like, and also made me really think about who I was allowing to be in that circle and protecting energy too, because I had some people that just like sucked the life out of me, and I was like, I cannot do this. So just know and be aware of that. That just a simple, a friendly tone, a personal question, or a simple smile, like these are all things that help with that. The fifth thing is confidence. And again, this is huge, and confidence, your nonverbals can do a lot for your confidence, right? Mm-hmm. You guys have seen stuff where if you're like this, or you're slouched over, like that shows a lack of confidence, like shoulders back, like when you walk into a room. And I think about before an interview, like I love the Superman pose. I'm a big fan. But I remember before big trainings, before big interviews, I'd look in the mirror in my office and I was like, you are a bad butt, and I'd like talk to myself. I'm like, you go in there and you're going to be the highlight of their day. And I say that in my interview. I say that in my demos and then my interviews. And I'm like, I'm going to go out there and change some lives. I'm like, let's do this, And it's like, some people, if they walked out or they left or they didn't want to be a part of it, like sucks for them. Like I knew what we were doing is something that could literally change their life. And that made me really excited. And so reminding yourself of that, because there are people that'll say things or do things that'll really crush your confidence sometimes. And so it's important to remind yourself that what you're doing matters and you're making a difference, and being confident as you go out there to execute. Number 6 is empathy. We talked about this a lot. If you watched the lesson from 2 weeks ago with, difficult conversations, but really understanding where they're coming from, like you have to put yourself in other people's shoes because you never know what they're going through. You never know what's happening, and you can't set your rules upon them. What does that mean? Well, people should do this. Well, if this happened, they should do this. By the way, we're all culprits of that. I did that this weekend with someone, and I was like, I can't put my rules on them. I'm like, what's going on? Why did you do this? Because in my head, I'm like, why would this is not something that you do. And I was talking to a friend of mine about that, and she's like, oh my gosh, yeah. And I was like, you can't put like your rules on how things should be or should be communicated to anybody else, So you have to try to really see into their world. And that goes to number 7, where it talked about open-mindedness in this article. And so really being flexible and open-minded to again, try to understand those aspects of things. So even if you disagree, just being open to possibilities of like, okay, that's interesting, and at least making it interesting or being interested in what they might have to say, even if you don't agree with it. Okay. Number 8 is respect. All right. Respect. So to me, when you have empathy and you're open-minded, I feel that people automatically do feel respected. When their voice is heard, there's a level of respect versus like, I don't want to hear you. I don't want to listen to it. That's right there. You're just like crushing someone, So, using people's names makes them like lift up, making eye contact, actively listening as they're going through, like all these things help. And again, you can check the article on this, and I've just been like throwing in the extra couple of things, and this is recorded as well. Number 9 is feedback. Really knowing how to give proper feedback is an important part of communication. And so this is a really big thing as a business owner that you want to get really good at, all right? And it's a constant like learning process. And we're going to be talking about at the monthly prep in 2 weeks with like the Enneagram, right? We talked about CBI in August, and understanding different styles of people and personalities. And this is really important because your feedback and how you speak to them is different. They hear things different. And so you're going to naturally, as a human, deliver it in the way that you get it, in the way that you make sense to you, but that might not get through to them. And so learning how to give proper feedback, whether it's phone calls, email, like just on a PC, a weekly meeting, whatever, really is huge. And by the way, this involves lifting people up. One of the best things you can do in a team meeting is find a way to recognize everybody, saying good job. Hey, thanks for taking care of that. Like thanking people, like all those things, like that's positive feedback that makes people feel good. And if they feel good, they also want to keep quote unquote coming back, right? Because think about it, where most people work, are they constantly made to feel good? No. So that's huge, you know? And then the last thing it had here in this, and I can apply to different things, is picking the right medium, like knowing like what's best to have in a text message, in a phone call, in an email, you know, face to face. And these days you can get a lot done just with FaceTime, you know, because it's like being face to face. When it's something very, very intimate, you want to try to do it face to face, you know, like that's the best thing. If not, then if there's no way or they're far away, you know, then you have FaceTime. Yeah, I would never text stuff that you're upset at, full conversations, like, because again, you can read things so many ways, you know, like I read a text the other day and literally like my brain is trained so I can read it different ways. And I'm like, oh, I could see how it could be this. Oh, I could see how it could be this. That's the same thing. But like where you put the tone on the sentence or what, where, like what context that was said could literally make it totally different things. Totally different things. So you have to be careful with that because you might be like, well, I told him this and you did it on a text and it's not the right medium for that. Because it can be misinterpreted. Like if anything, you had to do it via text, do it via voice memo. And anyone who knows me knows I use those because at least they can hear your delivery of it, right? Which can make those words sound very different. So just be careful with that because today's world, text slips text, text slips text, and they don't understand that some things are just not going to come across the right way. Or if someone misreads it, oh my gosh, you just went on a downward spiral, you know, versus thinking you were moving forward because something was delivered incorrectly for that, you know, like it just wasn't received the right way. So that's really huge. All right. But again, keeping in mind your basics of, you know, did the three parts of, you know, the main parts of your actual communication. Do you understand it? Do your reps understand it? And this is going to help in every activity that you're doing and why you want to be more excited, why you want to make sure you use your nonverbals, because you know how that's being used, how that's coming in, okay? So questions, feedback before we move on. You have to unmute yourself.
What was number 7?
Number 7 was open-mindedness.
Okay.
Cool. Any feedback? Is this useful? It's not, like that feedback is always good. So we're, you know, I'm excited and I wanted to run this. We want to just help you guys. Again, the goal is to help you guys be the best leaders that you can be. And this is being the best leaders in your families, being the best leaders in your communities, being the best leaders in business. Like these are skills that people don't have. And I work with big companies and I meet with some of their top, and I'm like, what the heck? And they were just never taught these things, you know, because it's not required when you're in school or with certain majors or people that didn't go to school. And like, where do you learn this, right? Like, unless you were like very, very intentional about, let me just do personal development. But even that, typically someone has to expose you to that, you know, or some crazy life thing happens and you're like, how do I not kill myself? And it's like Tony Robbins, unleash power within. And you're like, I'm going to listen to that. Or, you know, some crazy thing out. And like, that happens too. But knowing that. So I want to, any other quick things? I'm going to hand the floor to Roman and then I'll wrap up. So you take off. Go ahead, Alex.
Well, the thing that I'm kind of curious about is a couple of weeks, I think a week or two ago, I did an interview, or I was second manning in an interview. And somehow I left a really good impression with this one rep that ended up becoming a representative. And he went out of his way to contact me for advice and everything. I'm not sure what I did to kind of leave that kind of impression where he could depend on me for help. And whenever he got stuck on a demo or anything. And I'm just trying to figure out what I did exactly that kind of let that happen.
For most people, Alex, that's a quality conversation. Like they just connected, like you were asking questions, they felt heard, and they're like, I like this guy, I want to talk to him. Especially when someone maybe hasn't felt heard that much. You know, like a lot of people grow up in households where they don't, like, people don't want to hear what they have to say, you know, so them being asked about themselves, like how often do people are like, oh, tell me about you, or where do you go? And they're like, oh, and maybe they don't have that. And so that's like that right there, boom, establishes like a deeper sense of connection And so naturally people are going to want to continue deepening that connection with people.
Okay. That's why I was kind of just like, man, what did I do from this list that made it happen?
So good listening, asking good questions, you know,
Right.
being curious. Like those are things that really make a big impact.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
You're welcome. I want to transition to our Cutco lesson. And by the way, this is not just a Cutco lesson. This is a lesson you guys can take into any business that you do. I was just in Las Vegas last weekend, and when we were there, we went to some like pitch for a timeshare, stage club, whatever. But one of the things they were like, oh, and if you like tell a friend, like you can get $100 whatever, and they get $100 stay for 3 nights. And, you know, they're like, and the guy's like, you can use this for your business. And I started laughing. I was like, I've been using this in my business for 17 years. And he's like, it's the best way to build clientele. And I was like, oh, I'm aware. Because like him and I ended up talking, he goes, you're in sales? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay. You know, because I was like beating him to the punch on a lot of stuff when we were talking, but he was great. And I said, yeah, I've been using this forever. And he's like, okay. He's like, you got it. But this is a tool that when you're building any business, like a referral program, it's something I preach to people that I coach when they start businesses. And I'm like, you want to have a referral program, but I don't have the money to give away. But you wouldn't have that business if they didn't bring it to you. So it was free business. So you made 70% of something versus 100 of nothing. You know, so when my brother and his wife started their practice, they're like, oh, but yeah, we just don't have the funds to do that. I'm like, if someone refers you a client that pays you $250, give them a $50 credit towards their next visit with you. Like, just do it. Oh, but we can't afford it. No, you can, because they just gave you an extra $200 you weren't going to have. So you have to look at it different. You're running a business, and in a business, you spend money to make money. This is one of the best ways to build culture, to build teams quickly, to find good clientele fast. People love to be incentivized. I'm like, hey, give me incentives. I'll find you more people. Absolutely. For whatever they're doing. And they're like, oh, you can have this. I was like, I'm in. I'm going to tell people about it. It's great. I'm like, you don't have to convince me. I'm like, I like incentives. All right. As do most people. Anyway, so this is something that when you guys use, and we'll talk about more in the future, your program, like it's a huge staple. But again, it's not just something that you'll use in Cutco. Like people personally referring people, like having referral programs are huge. And then how you follow up with them is important, you know? So for us, we have our PR program. You guys talked about the PR engine last week, you know, and we'll talk more about the flow of things, and we put things in conveyor, but then there's people we call. Our top guys, we want to call their top 10, 15 reps. We want to call their friends from Snapchat. They might hand you the phone and go, here's my friend, they want a job, you know? And you want to be able to have that conversation. And again, it's on the phone. You don't have that face-to-face touch. So I asked Roman has one of the best, most consistent shows, top team builder in our division, I think that we've ever had, one of the top in the nation. And not just did he do that as a rep and as assistant manager, but also to this day, when he's calling as a manager of PRs, he has the top percentage, most consistent show for PRs. And so I asked him if he was going to run this anyway, but even when I told him I wanted to run stuff, I asked him if he was still willing to share, you know, keys to really rocking a great PR call. And then we can walk through the approach and stuff together. And so Roman, you can walk through whatever parts of the approach you want. And if anything, I can do more of the approach afterwards. So up to you. But I'm gonna put you on the big screen here. Spotlight video.
All righty, let me put my spotlight on. There it goes. So I'm actually not really gonna go through a lot of the approach. I'm gonna cover like a lot of the because everyone can read the approach, but it's a lot of like in the approach and obviously like going along with it. But I am going to start off by talking about like where you're making the PR calls from. It's just like making phone calls for demos. Environment is going to be everything. So you want to be able to keep motivated, because that will make a huge difference in the amount of PRs that you set in that jam, quote unquote. They say this is pretty old school. They say it's all about the ABCs, and ABCs stands for always be calling. You know, I find myself when I was like a younger rep during phone jams for demos where I would like, oh, make 5 calls, and then I would have like a 5-minute, 10-minute conversation. But like to be able to do that consistent, like 25 calls, okay, then I can take my break. So with PR calls, it's the same exact thing. You want to crank them out. Oh, you got a rude person? Oh, that's their loss, their fault, and keep going. So here's a few things that you can do to stay on top of your game. You want to have, I like to have music. I know some people don't. I do like to have music. I like to stand up. I don't like to pace, but like I'll like walk around the room and like just do weird stuff while I'm on the phone. It does help if you drink like coffee or take a double scoop of Ignite, or that way you have a lot of energy. Because like Miss Kristen said, like you're got to be like at a 15 or a 16 so that they're at like a 13, so that way their customers are like a 9 or a 10. The PR is at like a 9 or a 10. And I would definitely encourage like setting it up phone jam style where you have names up on the board. Every time you book a PR, it's like, boom, I got one. And you want to track your statistics. So it's like, okay, how many PR calls did I make? Okay, how many did I reach? How many did I book? All that stuff. And I think it'd be cool. I mean, I know that Kathy has done this with like some of the receptionists in her office where they set up contests. I know it's fun when you make fun competitions. Like Jay Taylor and I used to make some pretty crazy competitions back when we were in Katy. Like, hey, the loser has to run down the street in their underwear, like in the freezing cold while it's snowing, like just something crazy. It was a lot of fun, but it would make you work harder. And you know, that day that we did that, we ended up both booking like 20 something PRs because we didn't want to lose. And I actually ended up losing. And I, no joke, had to go all the way down the street. It was the same day that it snowed. I was like, oh man. And I was like, I'm not losing again. Or like, hey, whoever books more PRs by 12:30 has got to buy the other person lunch, or setting up fun competition. I would eliminate unnecessary distractions so that you can focus and start your shift with like either a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 takeoff, or like a ready to go. So that means you need to have like your approach. Okay, you need to have your objections. You need to have your like call log, whatever you're keeping track of, and then you should keep yourself organized like physically, and as a result you'll feel more organized mentally. But I would say the first thing, like I said, is the environment. The second thing is the golden urgency phrase for PRs. So it's like a money one-liner. It's like, hey, because you were personally recommended for the position, you have priority in scheduling. So dropping that, like when you're on the phone, building that urgency phrase, like, hey, I know it's super last minute, but I actually have a time. Like, don't be afraid to ask for a same day interview, because at just like a demo, a PR, the closer to like now that you book that, the more likely that they will show. Just like the closer that a demo you book, the more likely it's not going to reschedule. And then I would say number 3, guys, I mean, it is all about the basics. Just like an incoming call, you want to follow the basic principles. Like they would not be the basics if they didn't work. So just keep the following in mind. So you want to follow the approach. I mean, there's so many different out there. My favorite is, I think it's called Kathy's PR 2.0. That's my favorite. That's what I learned on. And it's designed to give the right amount of information. It also will naturally, like as you get it down, you'll connect with the caller and lead into setting an interview. So you also, building rapport is huge on the phone. I will get to know so much about them, so that way when they walk into the interview, like, oh, I know all about them, and I can just boom, 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 drop, be dropping off nuggets, because I was actually listening, because like, oh wow, this guy actually listened. So we have the advantage of their friend working with us, so it is easier to connect. And because the call is unexpected, we want to create the right impression with each person. So that means asking really good questions, discussing school, what they're studying, where they attend, are they in school, are they not in school, where else do they work at, past experience, asking them how they How do they know their friend? Like, hey, Lauren, I want to know, like, hey, how is it that you know Ryan? Oh, you know him from work? Oh, that's so cool. Where'd y'all work at together? Like, just getting to know them on the phone can go such a long way. People love, so it's a very easy area, and they're more like you. You also want to create urgency. Very, very important. I kind of touched on that one earlier. Just because we called them doesn't mean that we can't get them in as soon as possible. So their priority because someone recommended them. So because the majority of us of calling will be done like during our key like PR jams, we have to overcompensate. So we need to like set them accordingly. So this means setting the tone of urgency from the beginning and firming up properly at the end to set that expectation of them showing up like tomorrow. If I don't have any more demo, or if I don't have any more interviews tonight, so they should show up like tomorrow. Also handling objections properly is really huge. You will get a lot of honestly, people do have lots of questions, and it's funny because like you throughout the script you will answer like all the questions they ask, but they'll ask the same question just knowing they want it answered in a different way. Maybe they didn't get what you were saying the way that you described it, so just being able to say the same thing in a different way. So you should make sure that you have your objection sheet. There's a legitimate sheet that you should just memorize. Know your objections, because this is great. Also for like when you're talking to people in person, for like face-to-face approach, you have those off the bat. And you always want to follow the question cycle. It keeps you focused and therefore more confident and in control. So remember, you're calling them to set up an interview. So you want to be in control. And then lastly, guys, firming up. So don't forget at the end of the call, as strongly as you started, those last like 1 to 3 minutes is the impression you leave with the caller. That's what they're going to remember until they walk through your doors. So giving the proper directions. Okay, hey, we have 2 white buildings. We're the first one closest to the Moody National Bank. You know, it's called the Atlas Building. You're going to go through the doors. We're on the 2nd floor, all the way at the end of the hall on the right, suite 240. I would shoot you a text message, like just going through that firm up and then having them repeat it back to you. So it's like, hey, what was the name of the building? Okay, awesome. Did you get the suite down? What was it? Okay, awesome. Yeah, Buccaneer, like a pirate, or like something to help them memorize it. So you should also be sure to include the manager's name of who they're going to be interviewing with. So it's like, hey, you're going to be interviewing with Miss Anna Hosa. She is super excited to be able to meet you, like just be able to repeat the time a bunch of different times. So that way they know it. And you can also use this phrase to firm up. So it's like, now, Ryan, my manager, Miss Anna Hosa, is going to be expecting you at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So are you 100% sure that you can make it? Awesome. Just because I wouldn't want to take time out of her schedule, just to meet with you if you weren't able to make it. And then you want to communicate the right way. So the call is very unexpected, so we might catch them off guard. We also need to make up for the fact that the caller can't see us. We're kind of random to them. So you just want to speak. You want to speak, enunciate what you're saying. You want to enunciate while you're on the phone. So that way they can hear everything. You might want to read the approach a couple times before you actually like start calling. So that way you have it down. It sounds a lot naturaler. The faster that you speak, the more you're going to mumble, and the applicant's not going to be able to understand you, and they might not show because of that. Also, voice inflection. So having like just like, hey, so your friend Alex recommended you. You want to like kind of have ups and downs. It's like, oh, that's awesome. Look, oh, okay, yeah, like going through your voice inflection, it's gonna help the conversation flow, and it's gonna keep the caller it's gonna keep the PR like tied into you while you're on the phone. And then like I said, enunciate your words, because we have the obstacle of being on the phone, so they can't see your mouth moving. So we have to make up for that. Like Miss Kristen was saying, like all the nonverbal is gone. So we have to make up for that in a different type of way. And then this number 5 is, it's just tips from like past receptionists. So always find something to help build rapport. Even if it's something small, strike up a quick conversation with the caller, with the PR, to help make them feel more comfortable. You want them to be very comfortable. But I also have a checklist right here that I'm going to run through. These are just like bullet points really quick. It's why people show up to the interview. It sounds like an enjoyable atmosphere or environment. That's something that they want to be a part of. Positive, voice is appealing and enthusiastic. You gave good directions. You had good tone, clarity, voice inflection, diction. You really emphasized the great student opportunities, the income, the scholarships, the internships, how some people can earn college credit. You handled their questions properly and you stuck to the approach. You were confident with it. You weren't just going through the motions. You always stayed in control while on the phone. They like you. That's a huge one, is that they like you. No interruptions or distractions during the call. And Vector is a great opportunity. Being able to that's why people show up, building good rapport. You paid attention and created a connection. Now, here's some reasons why people might not show up to an interview. You weren't following the approach. You gave them poor directions, speaking too fast, too quiet, too loud. You had no inflection, so it was very monotone. Maybe you were distracted. Skepticism in your voice while on the phone with them. You weren't handling questions correctly. Loss of control, or you felt intimidated. Going through the motions. You were booking too far in advance. It's the same thing as a demo. I don't want to set a PR more than 20. I don't even want to set a PR more than 48 hours in advance. Transportation. They couldn't get a babysitter. Maybe they had a personal emergency, or they're no longer interested. Those are some reasons why people don't show up. But my biggest tip to you is whether you're in our office or a different office throughout the division, I would find out who has the best show to interviews, calling PRs, and I would listen to them. And it's very, very important. You want to be able to, if you want to be the best, you need to find someone who is the best, and then just copy them. That's basically, so you want to be able to listen to them, and you don't have to mimic, but you want to see how they talk to them, how they handle those questions and stuff like that. But honestly, I think those are the biggest things when calling PRs. Like, the approach is the approach. It's not going to change. It's the other things that do. So that is what I'm bringing at you tonight.
Awesome stuff. Any quick questions before Roman rolls? I'm going to finish up. Huh? Your computer did?
Oh, I have a question, Roman.
What's up?
So I kind of got a little bit overwhelmed when you were going over the reasons why people show up to interviews. So I managed to get down positive voice and enthusiasm, emphasizing the directions.
Roman, can you get a picture of that and post it in the group?
Yeah, I can scan it and I can post it, and I can actually scan both of them and post those in the group me for y'all.
That would be great. Yeah.
So just to give you an idea of who this is coming from the lady who trained Lorena Del Torre, who is like the all-time greatest receptionist in the world, who had like the amazingest show. So this is the lady who trained her. So like these are like the, oh my gosh, like money keys.
All right.
But I will put this in the group name.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roman. Appreciate it. All right. So I want to walk through the approach real quick. I emailed you guys the approach. Those of you guys who are on here, I'm going to pull this up so you guys can see it. So we have it. All right. So we can just read through it so you guys can see what this looks like. Let me see. Oh. One moment, please. I thought I had everything all great. Huh? Yes. All right. So I just want to make sure we have this here. And I forgot I'm on two different computers. So this wasn't on here necessarily. There we go. All right, so let me pull this up and share screen so you guys will all have this. here we go. So there's, as we're going through the phone approach, and I want you guys to like go through the sections just so you understand really the objectives. Because when I teach this, let me share this with you guys, sorry. When I teach this to people, I really want them to understand not just, you know, what you're saying, but like why you're saying it, right? And I have an approach, and he was saying like the 2.0, where the managers, I'm just like, dude, there's 3 things, like build rapport, let them know why the heck you called, and find a time to meet them. Like that's all you're doing. Like build rapport, let them know why the heck you're calling them, find a time to meet them. This is an easy approach to read through when, you know, like you're starting off. And then as you get in the flow and you listen to them, like you'll just see them chatting it up, you know? So first, like, and obviously you're greeting before you build rapport, because like, they don't know who the heck you are, you know? So you guys can all see here. Can you guys see, can you give me a thumbs up if you guys can all see what I'm sharing on the screen? All right, cool. You guys have it. So right away when I call somebody, so again, energy, your nonverbal, super important. So I'm like, hey, Julie, I'm like, this is Kathy. I actually work with your friend Javon at his new job. How's everything? Like, oh, hi. You know, I'm like, hey, Javon actually said he knew you from playing like softball and stuff back in the day and helped coach, and they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, anyway, the reason I was speaking to you is we have some positions available and we're conducting interviews this week to fill some of those. And so I asked, and I would say the manager asked if it was someone else's office, okay? But you guys can start saying, we asked, you know, as assistant managers, say, oh, we asked him if you knew anyone, or you could say, oh, the owner asked him, like up to you. But obviously when you're calling for your office, just say, I. And I'm like, yeah, I asked him if he knew anybody that might be a good fit. And he had mentioned you. So just wanted to ask you a couple questions, tell you a little bit about us. And if things sound good, set you up to meet with the manager. That way you can sit with them and learn all the details of the position. Sound good? All right. So again, you're greeting, like an initial quick hook, like you're greeting them. You're letting them know why you're calling. Now you're going to build rapport. And then we're going to find a time. All right. So now the rapport, like I want to connect with them. Like that's my goal, is that they go, just like Roman just said, people will show up because they're like, it seems like a cool place to work, or like, it's like one of the things, like people, it sounds warm, it sounds inviting. And so they want to be there. So when I'm, you know, I want to chit chat and I want to make them feel comfortable. So right away I'm like, oh, so do you still play softball? Are you going to school for it at all? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm playing it. Like if I knew they played softball, if I didn't, I'd be like, oh, so you're going to school anywhere right now? Or did you know Javon from high school or from college? You know, and they're like, oh yeah, I knew him from high school. I'm like, oh, that's great. You know, so I'm finding out a little bit more, but I try to make it as personal as possible, right? Because that's going to help you increase your shows big time as well. So I'm like, yeah, are you currently working anywhere? So these don't have to be in order. If you just notice, like I did them like flip-flops, right? So it doesn't really matter, but I highlighted, I want to talk about work. I want to talk about school. I want to talk about how we have flexible schedules, scholarships, and college credits. So those are all going to be as we're chatting, right? Because I might say, oh, so did you know him from high school or college? Oh, I knew him from high school. I'm like, oh, where are you going to school now? And they're like, oh, I'm actually going to Lone Star and whatever. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I said, what are you studying there? I'm like, hey, just so you know, it's super fun. I'm like, are you playing softball there as well? I'm like, oh no, I'm not playing anymore. Or they're like, oh yeah, I am playing. I'm like, well, the reason I ask is that we have super flexible schedules, which make it really nice, especially our athletes love it because it's great around practice and, you know, things you might have going on as well as school. And we work with the school. So you can actually earn college credits, you can earn scholarships, you know, so if you guys look at that, like, again, I have them highlighted because this is just gonna, I want it to come as natural in conversation as possible. Now, when you're new, you could say, are you at least 17 and graduated? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, awesome. And are you currently working anywhere? You're like, oh, that's great. And are you taking classes? Great. You're like, and you'll still be good, but like, you'll probably get like 30%, 25, 30% shows. And the best PR callers get over 50. Like he gets around 60%, you know, consistent. Most of us are in the 50 to 65 percentile of people that we talk to show up. All right. Now others can look at their stuff and they're like, not there. And they're at like 17% or 29%. And the difference is when they really feel like they're having a real conversation with you, because this is different. Like they wouldn't apply for a job. We're not calling them with the script because they applied. We're calling them out of the blue in most cases. You know, sometimes like they did respond saying like I needed work, but they don't know who's calling them or, you know. So I just want to chat with them. And I'm like, oh yeah, so how'd you know? Do you know from school? Or I'm like, oh, do you work? And I'm like, oh, cool. Well, hey, reason I asked, super flexible schedules. We offer scholarships. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. You know, so we're just chatting. And so I'm finding a way that they go, oh, this person's cool. I want to meet them. Like that's my objective when I'm building rapport is they go, oh, this person's cool. I want to meet them. Like that's my goal. And then I'm like, well, hey, you sound great over the phone. And if you guys notice, I just skipped that paragraph that's italicized and centered. And I just went straight to the star. Hey, you sound great over the phone. What I'd love to do is invite you in for an interview. That way we can get to know you better and see if you qualify to work with us. That way you can also check us out and make sure that the job would be a good fit for you as well. You know, can you walk me through your schedule for the next couple of days? And I'll be specific. Like if they worked at Popeyes, I'm like, hey, what's your Popeye schedule the next couple of days? And like classes at Lone Star. Like I'm very specific and I would jot that down because that makes a big difference. Because again, it shows that you were what? Listening, right? So this helps you connect with people on a deeper level when they feel like heard, right? So I'm being very specific with my questions. And then I'm like, yeah, what's it look like the next couple of days? And I'll see if we can make something work, all right? Here's what I'll tell you guys. Most of the time, I do not do the description, all right? The only time, you guys have all my information here. The only time that I do the description is if they ask. If they go, well, what exactly am I doing? You know? And I'm like, oh, she didn't tell you. I'm like, no, where? I'm like, well, hey, the name of the company is Vector. It's a huge student program. We work with colleges nationwide. Company's been around since 1981. And I go through that, but literally like it's so few people when you build good rapport and they're just liking talking to you. And I'm like, hey, I'd love to meet you. I'm like, hey, you sound great on the phone. I'd love to set up a time to come in. That way we can just get to know each other and see if it's a good fit, you know? Sometimes again, I preface in the beginning because I want to get off quick because I'm doing PDI, I'm doing PCs, like as a new business owner. And when I'm running everything, I'm not just sitting there like that's the only thing I'm doing for 5 hours. Like there's things happening. So when I get on the phone with someone, I go, hey, I'm Kathy, how are you? I'm like, well, hey, I don't have much time to talk, but I wanted to give you a call because Javan's one of our new top guys. We had some positions open. I asked him if he knew anyone that might be a good fit. And he said, you got to call Kenneth. So I just wanted to get a couple quick minutes to see if we could maybe find a time that we could meet to go over more details. I'm like, but how'd you know Javan? Do you know him from, and we'll chat. And I'm like, awesome. And we're chit-chatting where they feel comfortable. And then whenever I feel like, okay, we've connected and I want to do that in a short amount of time as possible. Got it? Because some people sit there and talk for 20 something minutes to the same person and you don't want to do that either. So I'm just chatting. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's great. We have this, you know, and just connecting dots for them where they're like, oh, this sounds cool. And I'm like, well, hey, dude, you sound great over the phone. I'd love to meet you. That's typically what you'll hear me say when I'm talking to someone, unless they suck on the phone. I won't say that. I'll just be like, well, hey, things sound great. I definitely would love to meet and just see if it's a good fit, you know, but most people I talk to, like, I'm like, hey, you sound great over the phone. I'm like, I definitely would love to meet you. I'm like, I'd love to see what the next couple of days look like to see if we can find a time that fits both our schedules. That way we can sit down and that way you can learn about the job, learn all the details. You can get a feel for us and we can see if it's a good match. How does that sound? Like, oh, great. I'm like, so what's your schedule at Popeyes the next couple of days? And okay, cool. And what time do you get out of class today? And I'm like, actually, what's the rest of today look like? Because I want to get them in now. I always say the next couple of days at first, but I go right back to them like, what's the day look like? I'm like, I actually still have a spot later at like 6:15. I can meet you today. I'm like, can we do that and just knock it out? And they're like, yeah. When you're getting like same day, your show is like over 75%, if not more. Every day, every interview that goes further out, the percentage lowers, okay? So I always wanted to find them a spot, like boom, immediately, because it makes such a big difference, all right? So just so you guys know and are aware of that, all right? So make sure that you're, getting them in as soon as possible. So that was my biggest thing was I call it next interview efficiency. So you'll hear same day, and those who are the best at same day have the highest shows. And a notch above same day, meaning I talked to them today, I set them for today, a notch above is next interview efficiency. Now, sometimes you can't because you talk to them at 6:30 and there's no more interviews for the rest of the night, right? So I want the next interview possible is when I want to get them in. So anyway, that's really important to make sure that people are set up properly. And then I'm like, hey, good news. I actually got a slot open at blank time and I can still squeeze you into, you know, or hey, I actually have a time today still available that I can meet with you. And they're like, oh, awesome. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, sounds like that would be good for both of us, you know, based on your schedule. Or hey, that sounds like that'd be a good time for both of you based on your schedule, right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so put pen and paper nearby. So I give you some quick, easy landmarks or whatever, and then just make sure that we get their email That way they do get those, but say, hey, I want to give you a couple quick landmarks. I know most people use GPS, but just so you know, when the GPS gets you here, you're going to see a Moody Bank on the corner. And then there's a white building right after it, like just south of it. And we're that first white building right under. There's 3 buildings that look the same, but it's 169, whatever, right after the bank, like the closest to the Moody Bank. There's Taco Bell, so I'm like, when you pay, you see Taco Bell, you'll see across the street. I'm like, you're close. And then just park, we're on the 2nd floor. And so you're giving them like once you get to the area directions, so that they feel good and feel familiar with like landmarks and stuff they're going to see. And then I'm like, all right, awesome. So, hey, just to make sure, and then I want to firm it up at the end. All right. So again, I'm greeting them, I'm building rapport. I'm greeting them, I'm letting them know why that guy called them, I'm building rapport, I'm finding a time to meet, and then I'm firming it up. So those are my 5 steps to my approach. I know I said 3 before because I'm like, greeting for me is natural and firming it up is like second nature. I do it in my sleep because every appointment you ever set up should be firmed up. In terms of the parts of the approach is build rapport, like let them know where you're calling, build rapport, and find a time. And sometimes I built rapport before letting them know why I was calling, like just because they're like, oh my God, yeah, she told me. And I'm like, oh, how did you know that? And we just started chatting and I'm like, well, hey, I was calling you because we do have those openings and I'd love to meet you. And it was kind of like backwards, but like, that's okay with these calls because they're very personal calls. It's our guys' friends. Okay. So this is the one time you will hear me say, like, you don't have to be word for word. All right. You want to make sure you connect, let them know why you're calling, make sure you connect with them, make sure you find a time, and then firm it up. All right. They need to like you. They need to connect with you and you're going to be in a great spot. All right. So I'm going to post this. So everybody has this in the group, or I don't know if one of you guys can post a picture of the approach into GroupMe, into the GCLA GroupMe. And we'll also get this, I'll get this emailed out. So I think you're all on my list that are on here. Yeah. So I'll email this out so you guys have it. I'll do that when we get off the call. So you have the approach there and you can start practicing it. Here's what I would tell you guys. Can you, by next Tuesday, make it a point to make 20 phone calls? The goal is that you get to talk to at least 5 people on the phone. Cool. 20 PR calls from now till next Tuesday. Yep. And I want everybody to track them so we could see how many you called. So you're like, oh, I made 20 calls. I reached this many. I booked this many. If you're an AM, you should be making 60 a week, no matter what. 60 is within 2 or 3 hours. And that's how you should be booking your 5 for the day. So we want to make sure that's something that goes into effect immediately. Anyone who's on staff is that you're making 60 calls each week, no matter what. So again, just block off 2 hours, 2.5 hours to knock that out. But for those who are not, at least 20 calls by next Tuesday. So make sure those are tracked so that you guys can just get a rhythm of this. All right. So this, again, you're just calling and saying hello. So I'm going to role play it live, just so you guys can hear a live one, and then we'll wrap up. Hey, hello, this is Kathy. I actually work with your friend Javon at his new job. How's everything going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. So the reason I'm calling you is that we have some openings available and we're conducting interviews this week to fill some of those. And so I asked him if he knew anyone that might be a good fit, and he had mentioned you. So just wanted to ask you a couple questions, tell you a little bit about us. And if things sound good, set you up for a time to meet with a manager. That way you can sit with them, learn all the details, and go from there. Sound good? All right. Cool. And you're at least 17 and graduated, right?
Right.
Perfect. So are you currently working right now?
No.
Okay. And are you taking any classes?
No.
Cool. So by the way, no need to be. The only reason I ask is that we do have really flexible schedules. So for those who are students, they love that. And we do award a lot of scholarships and people can earn college credits. So that's really neat too. What's your long-term game plan? Are you working towards anything or going to a trade school, or in terms of job, is there anything specific you're looking for?
I'm planning on going to cosmetology school and opening up my own salon.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, just so you know, we actually, something you'll learn about when you come in, we actually have like entrepreneurship internships, which are really great to learn how to start up a company too. So that might be why he recommended you. But I definitely would love to invite you in for an interview. That way we can just get to know you better, see if you qualify to work with us. And that way you can really check us out and make sure the job would be a good fit as well. So what's your next couple of days look like personally? Any errands, anything's going on where you're like blocked for time?
I'm usually blocked off until 1.
Okay.
And I'm good from 1 to 5.
Okay, got it. And what's the rest of today? Do you have stuff going on this afternoon?
No, I actually don't.
Okay, well, let me see here. You know what? I do have a time I can still squeeze you into at 3:40. So it sounds like that time would work then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So let's see here. Do you have a pen and paper so I could get you some info? Sometimes they're driving and I'm like, hey, no worries. I'll text it to you. So you have it. And if you have any questions, make sure to contact me back. I'm like, I do need your email. I was like, can you give me that real quick? Write down their email. When you enter them in the computer, you want to have their email. It makes it so much easier. And when you're closing out interviews, when you guys start running interviews, and Ryan, you know this, you can't close it out if it doesn't have an interview in there. I mean, an email in there. So it really like blocks the process. So make sure to get their email and then you can text them the rest and follow up with them. And I'm like, and by the way, is this the time? I know it's last minute and it's like in 2 hours from now. I'm like, but does this time definitely work well for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, beautiful. I'm like, let me know if you have any issues getting over to the office. I'm like, it's super easy. Like once the GPS brings you over, it's literally the first building after the Moody Bank. That's our building. So park wherever, go to the second floor. We're up in suite, 240, which you'll get that in the text message. But just, this is my personal cell phone that I'll message you from. So just message me, if you have any issues, no matter if you have any questions. Okay. So I look forward to meeting you soon. I'll see you soon. And I'll hang up and put them in there. All right. So, she didn't ask like, oh, well, what is it? And some people don't. They're like, all right, see you soon, because they know that they're going to get all that information. Where, if she asked, I would have said that, but she didn't. And that's how most calls end up. They're just like, yeah, cool. All right. So especially if they're looking for work. So any questions on that? You have to unmute. All right, cool. So a couple quick things, a couple quick reminders that I want to make sure everyone is thinking about weekly. Number one, do not forget, keep putting money into your startup. Even $20 a week is a big deal. Give it to your manager so they can mail it in for you so you can keep putting money aside. Cool. Any money you guys can put aside, it all adds up. So really want to help you guys with that of just keep putting money aside. You can even mail it in yourself straight to Olean. Like I'll put the address if you just want to send, you can't send cash. You can send a money order or a check and just keep putting money into your startup. I will find out about Olean. So my second thing was Olean homemakers, like get sponsored, like sell them immediately. So those of you who've been signed up, as soon as you sell it, you're going to get an influx for the however many $30 or $40 charges that you've had, you'll get that right back. So it's like you got paid off that. So sell your homemaker. You guys know you could also do a combo like 2 essentials plus 5s or an essentials plus 5 and a basic or galley trade-in. I think the homemaker is easiest with 200 points, but look at that again. I posted it in the group and actually I'll send it down. I'll send it with the email, the Olean papers with the email. Cool. And then Olean is closing this next week. So I know there were a couple people that we still had on the fence. I have to just see what spots are still open. I was out of town last week and they were closed today. So I will be having a conversation tomorrow and I will follow up for anyone else who hadn't gotten a sign up for Olean yet. But yeah, let's sell those. So that's out of the way and that's cash in your pocket immediately. And then let's make sure that we get on the bandwagon of consistency. Like, can you do one day, book 6 demos? I did 6 demos every Saturday, like whatever it is, pick a day and blitz it or do it over 2 or 3 days. But just getting in the rhythm of making sure every week you're doing 6 or more appointments every single week. For those of you who are away, even squeezing in 1 or 2 on virtual demos, between the craziness of everything you have going on. It all adds up, so I was really busy during school, so I could only do demos on Saturdays, but that worked out great for me. So whatever that looks like for you, making sure that we continue increasing career sales, increase money in your pocket, increase startup money, and just be building momentum, even if you're just working 1 day a week, a couple appointments, because then when the holidays hit, you want to have a lot of leads to maximize. So Thanksgiving week, you guys know Thanksgiving is that week is the #1 shopping week of the year. It used to be the day after Thanksgiving, but now it's like Black Friday week. And then right after Christmas, you know, so the more leads you have, like the better you'll capitalize, because you will have more objections of, oh, well, it's the holiday, call me after. Oh, it's the holiday, call me after. So you want more people to call, and you want to get stronger on the phones, so you can actually really nail that. Sounds good? All right. So thank you guys again. You'll always hear me say this anytime I'm speaking to you guys when it comes to Leadership Academy, but I know that it's a sacrifice to do this. I know today was a holiday. I appreciate you guys. And, you know, we're doing something now that others won't, to do stuff later others can't, and putting you in a position for that and not forgetting that, you know. And it's a little pain for a lot of gain. It really is. And you'll thank me years from now. I'd be like, thank you for having me do this, because it makes a big difference, you know. And sometimes those disciplines are hard and they hurt a little bit more now. It's like, I could just be going out and like partying, or I could be doing this. But it really pays off. It really does. And you guys are really setting yourselves up in a big way. So I wish you guys a great end of the night, and we will see you guys next week. See ya. And I'll email you guys here in a minute.